Edward called out. I stopped recording his YouTube video right away. He was always so particular about getting things perfect. Thanks for your help today, babe, he said, giving me a peck on the cheek. No problem, I replied. Supporting his vlogging career was important, even if it meant juggling my own busy work schedule. Edward started gathering up his filming equipment. I think we got everything we need. The cooking demo is in the can. Awesome. I began straightening up the kitchen area he had just demolished during filming. Your fans are going to love this one. Biffy Sai, our rambunctious pup, came bounding in, barking for attention. Edward scooped her up. Who's a good girl? You want to be in the vlog? I couldn't help but smile watching my two favorite beings in the world together. This was my little family in our New York City apartment. Even if the quarters were a bit cramped, it was home. After cleaning up from the video shoot, Edward flopped onto the couch, clearly exhausted from being on all afternoon. I joined him, giving his shoulder a reassuring squeeze. You're working so hard on these videos lately. I'm really proud of you for chasing your dream like this. He managed a tired smile. Thanks, babe. It means everything to have your support. Our dog Fifi hopped up, wanting some couch cuddles too. As I scratched her ears, I thought about how different our lives had become since graduating college. Edward surprising everyone by pursuing YouTube vlogging instead of medical school. His parents taken aback at first, but supportive as long as he was happy. To me putting my small-town roots behind to move here and be with the man I loved in the biggest city in the world. It was all worth it to build this unexpected life together. You know, Edward said, breaking the momentary silence, my channel is getting great traction with the cooking videos lately. I could hear the spark of an idea in his voice and looked at him expectantly. This was the passion that made his videos so engaging to watch. So, I was thinking of doing a whole series on easy meals for busy people, Edward continued excitedly. You know, for folks without a ton of time or kitchen skills, showing them how to whip up simple, tasty dishes. I grinned, already able to visualize the concept. That's brilliant. Your fans are going to eat that up, no pun intended. He chuckled at my cheesy joke. Exactly. With all your crazy long hours at the publishing house, you could be my recipe's ideal guinea pig. Why do I suddenly feel like the lab rat? I teased back. In that moment, just like countless others, I was struck by how lucky I was. Here we were, two kids from small towns making our own unexpected way in the big city. Carving out careers, chasing dreams, sharing in each other's passions. All thanks to taking a chance on love all those years ago when Edward quite literally spilled wine all over me at that theater production. Who would have thought that awkward meet-cute would lead to this wonderful life together? A few days later, I was powering through some contract revisions when my phone buzzed with a text from Edward. Any chance you can sneak out early tonight? I smirked, quickly typing back. Maybe if you make it worth my while. Edward's response was just a single emoji, a winking smiley face. Intrigued, I focused back on my work, determined to barrel through it as fast as possible. A couple hours later, I burst through the door of our apartment. Honey, I'm home. Edward appeared from the kitchen, a huge grin on his face. Perfect timing. I've got an early birthday surprise for you. My birthday's not for another month. I eyed him suspiciously as he produced 2 tickets from behind his back. No way, you didn't. 2 orchestra seats for the revival of Les Mis, he announced proudly. I shrieked in delight, flinging my arms around him. Les Miserables was my all-time favorite musical, and these tickets were virtually impossible to get. How did you manage this? I asked in amazement. Let's just say I know a guy who knows a guy, Edward replied mysteriously. Are you happy? I answered him with a deep, loving kiss. In that moment, the stresses of work melted away. This was why I put up with the insane hours, so I could live a life with someone like Edward, someone who knew me so well and went above and beyond to celebrate the things I loved most. That Friday night, we arrived at the Majestic Theater for the 8 p.m. showing of Les Mis. Giddy with excitement, as we waited in the line to be seated, I couldn't help stealing glances at Edward. He looked especially dashing in his crisp black shirt and slacks. I felt a flutter of pride that this was my man on my arm for our Broadway date night. Catching me admiring him, Edward flashed me a warm smile. What's on your mind? He asked, giving my side an affectionate tickle. I was feeling incredibly lucky, I replied simply. To be here like this with you. The way his green eyes crinkled at the corners whenever he smiled back at me still made my heart skip a beat, even after all these years. As we found our seats, Edward took my hand and gave it a squeeze. You know, we really need to discuss something. I tensed up slightly, never sure where these conversation starters were headed, but he just grinned again. How we're going to celebrate when I inevitably make you cry during the empty chairs at empty tables scene. I rolled my eyes but laughed at his lighthearted joke, the momentary prickle of worry evaporating. This was just how we were, a perfect matching of silly and serious. And as the lights dimmed and the sweeping musical overture began, I couldn't imagine anything better. The performance was incredible, just as emotionally resonant as I remembered. Edward even managed to avoid overtly mocking my misty eyes during the sadder numbers. As we exited the theater, caught up in energetic dissections of our favorite scenes and performances, he casually draped his arm around my shoulder. He began, that familiar devilish glint twinkling in his eyes. We've been together an awfully long time now. I felt my heart skip a beat, unsure where this was headed. Yeah, so, he stopped walking and turned to face me directly. Maybe it's time we made things official. My mouth went dry as I searched his expression, scarcely believing what I thought he was implying. Edward, are you asking? He took my hands and his green eyes locked intensely onto mine. Chance, you are the most important person in the world to me. These years together have been the best of my life, and I want an infinite number more by your side if you'll have me. I couldn't stop the tears from spilling down my cheeks as I flung myself into his embrace. Yes, I managed between happy sobs. Yes, of course I'll marry you. The excitement and bliss of our engagement was still fresh and new when my monthly work review at Eton Publishing rolled around. I've been busting my ass on a huge book deal acquisition, practically living at the office to get everything perfect. The big meeting did not disappoint. I totally nailed my presentation and landed the massive deal for the company. My boss and colleagues were thrilled, breaking out the office champagne stash to celebrate right afterwards. As the bubbly drinks were being passed around, my phone started buzzing repeatedly. I glanced down to see a string of increasingly frantic texts from Edward. Promise you'll record when you hit 1 million subscribers. Babe, it's happening. This is it. A cold bucket of realization doused my previous euphoria. Edward had spent months tirelessly promoting and strategizing to hit that coveted YouTube milestone. And I, self-absorbed idiot that I was, had completely forgotten about it in the haze of work madness. I quickly typed back an apologetic "oui," and threw back the rest of my champagne. My big work accomplishment paled in comparison to the significance of being there for such a tremendous career moment for the love of my life. I bolted out of the office without a second thought, hailing a cab home as fast as humanly possible. Please let me make it in time, I prayed over and over during the agonizing taxi ride. Edward had been by my side through thick and thin for years. The least I could do was return that for one of his biggest dreams coming true. I burst through the door of our apartment, desperate apologies already spilling from my lips. But Edward just smiled, that warm, understanding smile that made me fall for him all over again. You're here now, that's what matters, he said simply, pulling me into a tight hug. Relief washed over me as I melted into his embrace, inhaling the comforting scent of his cologne. Fifi bounded over, yapping for attention, and we welcomed her into our group hug with a laugh. I'm so proud of you, babe, I murmured, planting a kiss on Edward's cheek. You've worked your ass off for this. In that moment, it didn't matter about my inconsiderate lapse or the fancy new book deal at work. All that mattered was being present with my little family, celebrating this major milestone together. Later, we ordered an indulgent feast from our favorite that place and spent the rest of Sunday evening crowded on the couch under a blanket, Fifi curled between us. We shamelessly binged terrible rom-coms, feeding each other noodles and curry puffs between lingering kisses and glasses of cheap. 1 million subscribers, Edward murmured in wonder every so often, never losing that glowing smile. As I studied the delighted crinkles around his eyes, I couldn't help but feel immensely grateful that this was my life, chaotic and beautiful and very perfectly imperfect, and I wouldn't have had it any other way. The next morning, I woke up feeling refreshed and ready to properly commemorate Edward's big achievement. While he was out on a coffee run, I quickly got to work. First, I printed out a massive congratulatory banner and hung it up around our living room. Then I blew up a bunch of balloons in our signature YouTube red color and scattered them everywhere. Finally, I dug out the novelty videographer outfit he had bought as a joke and put it on, prepared to give him the full camera crew experience. When he opened the front door juggling our coffees, his jaw dropped at the celebratory scene. Whoa, what's all this? Roll camera, I announced in my best impression of a Hollywood director's voice, whipping out my phone to record. This is a very special edition of the Edward Allen YouTube vlog, giving a behind-the-scenes look at the newest million-subscriber milestone. A huge grin spread across his face as he played along, theatrically spinning in a circle so I could get footage of him in the decked-out living room. Why, thank you. It's been a long road, filled with blood, sweat, and protein-style burger tears, but we made it. Unable to contain my laughter at his hamming it up, I pulled him close to give him a big celebratory smooch on the cheek. I'm so freaking proud of you, babe. You've earned every single sub. The way his eyes crinkled behind the camera said everything. This goofy extra bit of adoration meant more to him than any number on a YouTube stats page, and commemorating it together made the milestone feel truly ours, just as our lives had become. After the novelty of celebrating Edward's milestone wore off, regular life inevitably crept back in. Work demands at the publishing house ramped up again as I was assigned another huge book acquisition. Late nights at the office became the norm, poring over contract details and cold calling agents. I barely had energy for anything else beyond hugs and kisses with Edward when I finally dragged myself home each night. He was incredibly understanding, of course, making us simple dinners, running me baths, giving me massages to unwind, but I could see the faint worry lines crinkling at the corners of his eyes whenever I missed another date night or weekend brunch plan. "You're working yourself ragged over there," he murmured one evening as he kneaded the knots out of my shoulders. "Don't burn yourself out, okay?" I tried to shrug it off with a tired smile. "It's just a busy season, babe. Once I get this deal locked